Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Unparalleled Universe for another action figure comparison video, and today we're taking a look at a few different Nightcrawler figures. And what we have here is the Hasbro Marvel Legends Nightcrawler from the Wendigo Build-A-Figure wave, and then we have the Marvel Select Nightcrawler from Diamond Select, and then over here we have the Marvel Legends Galactus Wave Nightcrawler from Toybiz. And all of these figures I feel are very well done. Each one of them have their flaws, but all three of them bring something to the table. So let's get into it, starting with the details and the overall look of these figures. Okay, so let's start this off by taking a look at the Marvel Select version, because the Hasbro one and the Toybiz one are very similar to each other, and the Diamond Select one kind of stands on his own. But let's take a look here. I think the sculpting work on this figure is very nice. I think the figure looks really good, and he's the most demon looking in the face compared to these other ones. You could see the Hasbro one has like a more like a younger type of look. He doesn't look like a demon at all. He kind of looks like an elf, I'd say, you know, and that's kind of accurate for Nightcrawler, but he's often depicted as an ugly demon too, so that works out good. And I love the yellow eyes here. The yellow eyes stand out the best on this figure compared to the other two, just because the paint style, it has a more hand painted type of look to it. And yeah, this figure is awesome, and he has less articulation, so the sculpt looks a little more streamlined. You could see on the Toybiz version, the sculpt is pretty broken up because they try to stuff a bunch of stuff in there. It's just kind of the way it is with Toybiz. The Hasbro one has pretty nice and clean articulation, but there's still a little bit more going on than there is on the Diamond Select one. And you could see the Diamond one has more of a blue look, and both the Toybiz and Hasbro versions have black instead of the blue shading. And either way works. And yeah, I think the Diamond Select one looks really good. He just doesn't have the most articulation, you know, that's the big problem with that figure, but we'll get into that a little bit later. And let's take a look at the tails here. He does have a bendy wire in the tail, which is awesome. The Hasbro version does not have that, which is one of the flaws of that figure. And the Toybiz one actually has the bendy wire too. So the Toybiz version has like an older look for Kurt, especially in the face here. And I like this head sculpt. I think it's good, but I just don't feel like it looks like Nightcrawler. So far, I think the most accurate head sculpt that we have between these three figures would be the Hasbro one. Or actually, I mean, this is just Nightcrawler, like my Nightcrawler, you know, like a younger, I was going to say happier, but this face doesn't really depict that. He does come with an alternate head, which depicts like a more happy, jolly kind of Nightcrawler, and that's kind of how I see him in my mind. This figure is awesome. It was really good for its time, and for the longest time, I felt like I didn't need another Nightcrawler for my 6-inch display because of this one. But yeah, now that I have it here along with the Hasbro one, you know, I could see that there was definitely some things that could be improved on this Toybiz one. For instance, the torso looks a little long, and it looks really broken up because of all the articulation pieces and all the different things we have going on here. And on top of the articulation, breaking it up, we also have like this overlay. Makes it look even more broken up because it's actually like a separate piece. It's right in here. So you have the waist cut, the ab crunch, this torso diaphragm thing, and then you have another cut right there. So it looks like there's a lot of things going on here. I think the Hasbro one looks a lot better and cleaner in the torso area, just in general too. Look at the limbs, look good on this new Hasbro one. And it just looks awesome. One thing I do love about the Toybiz one that the Hasbro one doesn't have, and neither does the Diamond Select one, is the articulated hands. And this is one case where the articulated hands actually came out really good. I think neither one of the hands look bad on Kurt here, so I'm happy about that. I would have preferred articulated hands on either one of these figures. I know that Hasbro doesn't do that too much because that's just not what they do, but I would have loved to have seen articulated toes. I think that would have been awesome. We did not see that on either one of these figures, but that is on the Toybiz one. Now let's see what else we have going on here. Yeah, I think all three of these figures are great. Let's back up Nightcrawler a little bit over here. The only big problem I have with the Diamond Select one as far as the overall design goes is that his legs are super long and it kind of looks weird. I mean, I guess they're not that long. I don't know what it is. He looks tall, especially standing next to these smaller figures. And with the Toybiz one, it's a good figure. I love this figure. I've liked it for years, and I always thought that I would never need another Nightcrawler. But putting him next to a newer, cleaner figure, you could definitely see its flaws, and his torso area just looks like a mess now that I'm looking at it. For the Hasbro one, everything looks nice. He looks nice and clean and just really, really good. There are a lot of paint imperfections though, as you could see right here in the arm. You can see that there's red, but it's painted over the black, and the black really comes through the red, so that does suck a lot. But actually, that's the only spot where I had paint imperfections, but every Nightcrawler that I've seen so far has some kind of paint imperfection. And then the other thing that these two figures have over the Hasbro one is the bendy wire in the tail. But I do like the way the tail sits here. It just looks cool. It looks very natural. I guess it's hard to get the bendy wire tail into like a natural position. It always kind of looks kinked. I guess like you could kind of straighten it out, but no matter what, you know, it's a metal wire in there, so it's always going to look, it's never going to look as natural as like a preformed tail that we have over here. But still, it's cool to have the option to be able to hang him from the tail and things like that. But yeah, all three of these figures are awesome and I like them. But I'd say for the overall look and design, the Hasbro wins by far. In general, he just looks a lot better than the other two. The only thing that he's missing is that bendy wire. And for the accessories, the Toybiz version is going to have to sit this round out because he doesn't come with anything. But the Diamond Select version comes with a very cool stand, which is like the Nightcrawler Banff teleportation effect. And it looks really cool. It's like translucent plastic and you could stand the figure on there. There's some pegs and it looks really cool if you put like a light behind it and kind of make it shine like that. It doesn't necessarily look like smoke, but I guess it's hard to sculpt smoke, you know. But yeah, it looks good though. And I think this is a really cool accessory, and neither other versions of Nightcrawler has come with something like this. So that's awesome. And another cool thing about it is that you could use it with those other figures. The accessories that come with the Hasbro version can't really be used with, you know, with the Diamond Select, for example. So that's another advantage about this. You could use it across different scales. And as for the Hasbro version, he comes with a bunch of cool stuff, including multiple heads. First off, we have the regular head that looks really cool. It's like a young Nightcrawler. And then the next one is like a smiling Nightcrawler, which is awesome. And that's the look that I always envisioned for Kurt Wagner. So that's dope. And then the last head is a screaming head with half of the face dark, and it's supposed to be like a shadow on his face, which is like iconic 80s Nightcrawler. So that's really good stuff too. And then he does come with a really cool swashbuckler type of sword, and this thing is awesome. It has like a gold handle and a silver blade. It looks really cool and he looks awesome holding it. And then the last accessory is an extra hand, so that when you don't want him to hold his sword, he just has like an open hand and he doesn't have like an awkward gripping hand on his right side. So really good stuff as far as accessories go for the Hasbro version. And I think by far I'd much prefer the multiple heads over the Banff effect. The Banff effect is cool, but you know, I'd prefer the heads because you could make different types of Banff effects with like cotton or fog or something. You could do something else to make that work, but you know, you got to have these different heads for Nightcrawler so that you could convey different personalities of the characters. So I prefer the accessories that come with the Hasbro version over the accessory that comes with the Diamond Select one. As far as the scale goes, both Marvel Legends figures are 6-inch scale figures, and the Marvel Select one is a 7-inch scale figure, so it makes sense that he would be a lot bigger than them. But in my opinion, I feel like he's too big even for his own scale. If you look at him right next to Gambit, he's about the same size as him, and I've always thought Gambit was like a really tall guy, and Nightcrawler should be somewhere in between Gambit and Wolverine's height, in my opinion, and he's just a little too close to Gambit right here, so I think he's a little too big for his own scale. But the Marvel Legends figures, I feel like, are perfectly scaled and they look really good next to other X-Men Marvel Legends figures. And because these figures are different scales, there's pretty much no way that you're going to be able to cross them over. The Marvel Legends ones are not going to fit in with your Diamond Select display, and the Diamond Select version is not going to fit in with your Marvel Legends display. But that's okay. I know that's not the reason why these companies make these figures, but you know, it's always cool to be able to cross things over between different lines. But in this case, it's not going to be able to work. As far as who captures Nightcrawler's scale the best, I'd say that it's kind of a tie between both Marvel Legends versions, and the Diamond Select one is just a little too big no matter what scale he's in. For the articulation, the Diamond Select version does not stand a chance, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at his articulation real quick just so you know what we're dealing with here. But the biggest flaws with it are the single jointed elbows and this torso, that it has a cut but it doesn't crunch. Man, that sucks. Look at that, it won't move at all. It's there, but it pretty much serves no purpose because you also have a waist swivel. So I mean, you get a little bit of swivel from there, but you don't need it if you have the waist swivel, and you don't really have any tilting or anything like that. Diamond Select has improved on their torsos with their more recent figures, but this one's a couple years old, so back then they were crazy like this, where they would have the torso joint in there, but it wouldn't get any type of movement. And then, yeah, as I said, he's got single jointed elbows, which is inexcusable for a Nightcrawler figure. But the legs are pretty good. You know, you have double jointed knees, no lower leg swivel, no rocking ankles. I guess the legs kind of suck too. But I mean, you could get him into decent poses, but this is not a figure that you're going to want to pick up and play with very often because it's just not that fun. It's one of those guys, for me, I just kind of put him in a pose, leave him on the shelf next to my other select X-Men, and I'm pretty happy with it, you know. But as far as the articulation goes, he doesn't really have that much to offer. But as for these two, it's a battle to see which one has the best articulation. Both of them have some really good stuff going on, and each one of them has something that the other one doesn't. So there's a lot of good things to talk about. But let's start off by talking about the similarities. They both have double jointed elbows. They both have double jointed knees. They both have heads that are on ball joints, so they pretty much get the same type of movement. You could look up, you could look down. You have some tilt going on. And then the one big advantage I'd say that the Toybiz one has over the Hasbro one is the articulated hands and feet, and not only just because they're articulated, but the fact that they're articulated but they still look good, and I could really appreciate that. And then also in the torso, the Toybiz one has a ab crunch, and it also has the upper diaphragm joint, so that's cool too. I would have loved to have seen that on this figure, especially seeing how good they're doing it on the Power Rangers figures. I think that would have worked nice. On here, it doesn't work as good because I feel like you don't get that much, I don't know, you just don't get that much movement out of that diaphragm joint, and the ab crunch doesn't work that well because he always wants to pop back up. That was kind of like a common problem that Toybiz figures had, but you can get him to crunch and stay there. It just right away, if you touch him a little bit, he's gonna pop back up like that. And even though there's a bunch of cool articulation right here, I think it kind of sacrifices the sculpt in a way that's not worth it, in my opinion. So, you know, there is definitely more there, but it's not as useful, and it just doesn't contribute to the overall figure as much as it should. One big thing that the Hasbro version has over the Toybiz one is the butterfly shoulders. That is awesome. Even though they're a little bit hindered because of the shoulder piece, you could still get them into some really good jumping poses with them, and you could also get them into some really cool sword swinging poses. So I like that a lot. One thing that the Hasbro one is missing that I wish he had that the Toybiz does is a lower leg swivel, because it's kind of hard to get him into good crouching poses because you aren't able to swivel his leg. You could still get him into some decent ones, but I feel like you could get the Toybiz version into better, more deeper, more natural looking crouching poses because of all the articulation in his feet, and you also have that lower leg swivel that I mentioned. And speaking of the articulated feet, there's a lot of good things going on here. You have the articulated toes, even this back toe thing is articulated, and in my opinion, I don't think they look very bad. You know, a lot of times when Toybiz used to stuff articulation into fingers and toes, it didn't look very good, but I'm okay with the way the feet look, and I think the figure benefits overall by having those type of feet. So overall, it's hard to say which figure has better articulation. I would say the Toybiz version has more, but it's really hard to say that it's better because not all of it is that useful. And the Hasbro version, I feel, is missing some things that he really needed, mainly that lower leg swivel. I think that would have helped a lot in getting him in crouching poses and different type of things that you'd want Nightcrawler to do. The Toybiz version is able to do those things, but a lot of the other articulation is clunky and it doesn't look very good, and it doesn't even work that good, mostly the torso. It would have been really nice if the Hasbro version had that type of torso, but with you know, the way that they execute it these days, I think that would have been great, and that would have made it for sure so that the Hasbro version smashed the Toybiz one in articulation. But even still, I'd say that I'd prefer the articulation setup and overall look on the Hasbro version over the Toybiz one, but the Toybiz one does have a lot more, so I mean, you know, I think in this case it's really a matter of preference, but in my opinion, I think the articulation is better executed on the Hasbro version. Alright guys, so now for a quick recap. As far as the overall look and design goes, I feel like the Hasbro Nightcrawler is the best looking figure out of the three. I will say that I think the Toybiz one is pretty good, especially for its time. He's held up really well, and he really only starts to look outdated when you compare him to this new one, because for the longest time I was perfectly happy with this version of Nightcrawler along with my Hasbro Marvel Legends figures, and it wasn't until I got this new one that I started to feel that the Toybiz one was outdated. I didn't even care about the ball joints before, but then once I saw how nice it looked without the ball joints on this new one, I was like, man, it looks so much better. It fits in so much better with my modern X-Men display, and he's just a really good figure. The Toybiz one is a good figure. If for some reason you like that one more than the Hasbro one, I wouldn't really argue with you. I'd understand, because it's a nice nice figure, but I feel like it's not as good as the Hasbro one as far as the overall look goes. And then for the Diamond Select one, I like the sculpt work on the body. I think the paint work is really nice. The only thing I really don't like are his long legs, but one thing I like a lot about the figure, and I feel like some people are going to disagree with me, is the head sculpt, because I really dig the more monstrous demon type of look for Nightcrawler, because I think it kind of works for his character. You know, back in the days, Nightcrawler was always perceived by strangers as like a scary demon type of thing that people were always like apprehensive about being around, but once they got to know him, they realized that he was like a super nice guy, and I think that's easier to pull off with this Diamond Select one, because he looks scary, you know, but he's not scary, he's awesome. But yeah, I think that's a good figure, and I don't really think he looks as good as the Toybiz one or the Hasbro one, but he does have his place in my collection as far as I'm concerned. And then as far as the accessories go, again, the Hasbro one dominates both of them. The Toybiz one came with nothing, so that's that. But the Marvel Select one comes with a really cool BAMF effect, but like I said, I'd prefer the multiple heads and the weapon over the BAMF effect. And then as far as the articulation goes, the Diamond Select one is not even in the conversation. The articulation on that figure is pretty bad. I really wish that they'd release a new Nightcrawler with how they've been doing articulation lately. They've really stepped it up. I'd love to see what they could do with Nightcrawler with you know, the articulation schemes that they have going on nowadays. I think they can make a really good figure. But for now, as far as the one that we have, the articulation sucks. And as far as the Toybiz one and the Hasbro, I'd say that they're pretty much even in terms of articulation. Each one of them has something that the other one doesn't, but they both could pretty much do everything that you want Nightcrawler to do. So both of them are tied in that respect. But yeah, I think overall, just in terms of the best Nightcrawler figure you could go out and purchase, I would have to say that it's by far the Hasbro one. He's a really good looking figure, great accessories, really good articulation. He's an awesome update to an old figure, and it's just so cool to have a Nightcrawler with all the different heads, and you know, just such a well executed figure that could fit in with the new X-Men figures that Hasbro's been killing it with lately. So for me, out of the three figures, it's the Hasbro one all day. The Toybiz one is in second, and overall, I'm going to be honest with you, the Diamond Select one is in a far third. I like the figure, but you know, he never had a chance against the other two. I just wanted to throw him in here because I don't have that many Nightcrawler figures. But I do like it. He's just nowhere near as good as the other two. But anyways, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And also be sure to leave a thumbs up. And that's it. Thank you very much. Peace.